In the summer of 2017, Ian Minnick was in a slasher movie that we made called Damage Control 3 Revelations. And I'm assuming most people probably don't know about it because he's kind of, he was a guy of a jack of all trades, I guess you can say, and he did everything. And I feel like he just didn't tell a lot of his friends about it. But it was probably the main reason that I got to know Ian was from this movie.
The first time I remember really working with Ian on movies wasn't actually for any of our stuff. It was back in high school Spanish class. We all had the same group in like 3 years of Spanish, and we'd convince the teacher, Mr. Romano, to let us make Spanish movies instead of doing like actual work and learning. So the first time I worked with Ian, we actually did this awful Spanish film where we wrote our own dialogue, and it was something about like a mystical forest, and I remember he talked to a wall.
Pwede sa dorme.
Si ve tu antes si crei te ayudaría.
El malvado robó mi príncipe.
Caminé por el campo de sueños y el hechicero hace muchos años de día. El fácil y debes también.
Gracias.
De nada.
None of us were good at Spanish, but it was just something to like kill the time, and I just remember that being a really fun way to waste class time.
So Ian was a fun guy, especially within our movies, because like he was in our first movie we ever tried that was utter crap.
The first time Ian worked on one of our movies was actually during freshman year of high school for us. And we tried to make another slasher movie unrelated where no one knew the lines. It was a terrible script. And I remember he was really, I don't think any of the footage survived, but he was really struggling to remember our lines was us, that we actually had to have someone come on and hold up cue cards. And while we were filming that scene, the person holding up the cue cards, you can hear it moving behind the camera. Ian says his line. Then he says his line. It was awful, and I really wish some of the footage survived from that because it would just be so much fun to watch.
So we carried him on. We're like, hey, we haven't utilized him in the new series that worked, but so we're like, we'll bring him on.
So I remember when I was first writing this movie, I really needed someone who could play the guitar, and I knew no one who knew how to play guitar, and not like a single friend. And I remember from high school, Ian he could do any instrument, so. I had not like talked to him for a long time. Like this would have been 2017 in college. I graduated in 2015, so it was a long time before I had talked to him. I probably didn't. The last time I talked to him might have been like 2013. Maybe hung out once, didn't do much. And then I just texted him out of the blue because I found his number in my phone. I'm like, hey, do you want to be in a movie this summer? And most people was like, yeah, I'll think about it. He was like, no, let's just do it. Definitely, no questions asked. I didn't even have to tell him like what the movie was about. He was just totally willing to be in it. Someone he's barely talked to in years he was game for it. And and every other person, it was like a nightmare trying to cast him. So he was like the one time it was like everything went well. So I was really glad to get him in this movie, especially because I had someone to play the guitar.
You could tell his character was very Ian, how he did stuff. We made him a jerk. I mean, Ian's not a jerk, so I mean, he played that role really well. We really wanted a guy that was just gonna play a guitar and look like a douchebag. So I mean, he was able to play that role. He was all fine with it, and it was really something that I thought brought more, flavor to the movie. And
So around the same time I asked him to be in the movie, I also asked if we could use some of his band Chil's music in it because we needed any music we can get. And I had not like listened to his band before. I just knew that they were like pretty good. And it was after like he gave permission because he was like, again, was the acting? Why not? Go for it. We ended up putting like 4 different songs of theirs in our movie just because it was. I just fell in love with their music. I actually went out and bought all their CDs online. Download all their new songs when they come out, and I'm glad that we were able to use some of his music in there, and I'm glad that he was willing to let us use the music.
We actually got to use Chil's songs in the movie, which made us go from like not even D movies, like F movies to maybe E movies. So we're not even close to B movies yet, but actually having, because before that we just had like a guy we know on a keyboard doing stuff, so we went from that to actually having songs.
One of the great things about having Ian on set was that he has technical knowledge about how to shoot movies and work with all the camera and stuff, because the rest of us are purely amateurs that have never done any of this in school. We just have kind of made it up as we went along, but since he has gone to school and done classes for it, he was able to help me with shots and angles for filming, and he even stepped in to do some of the directing for us. And all that really helped boost up the movie from a truly awful level to a kind of manageable okay, and that was a lot of his work.
So I found out apparently it's no secret that Ian was someone who was always late for everything. And I remember his very first day he was filming, it was the party scene. And his character is late to the party. So the whole time we're talking about how his name was Brandon. The whole time we're talking about how Brandon wasn't there. When's he gonna come? Why is he so late? And then we finish all these scenes, and when Brandon's supposed to arrive, and no, Ian, no, that didn't come till 45 minutes later. We eventually showed up in classic Ian fashion. And then my favorite late story from him though is we were pressed behind the clock. It was like, if we don't film this day, we're not gonna make it. And everything was set up, we got everything ready to film, and he's late, again. So I remember we were out back in the woods waiting to show up, and then someone came running back to me casually and yeah, actually, Ian's actually already here, he's just up there talking to James's mom. And then I just booked it away, as fast as I've ever ran, right back to the house, and lo and behold, he's just casually talking to James's mom when nothing's wrong. And here's me panicking inside, oh man, we're not going to finish this movie. And Ian doesn't have a care in the world. He's just that kind of easygoing guy. Yeah, I just remember I ran up there and he's like, yeah, I got to tell you something. I'm like, no, you don't. You got to go right now. We somehow finished it though. We started just telling him to show up 30 minutes or an hour earlier. And without telling him that we're supposed to start there. And he was still late somehow.
He was funny because he had times where he had the best acting out of anybody, and then he'd go right into he had this really emotional scene where he said something and he did it perfectly, and he's supposed to lunge at the guy. It was just spot on. Then it went right from that to and yeah, I don't know, we all thought that was hilarious. So he had this range to him.
You killed her. She's the only one I ever cared about. The only one I ever loved. Sorry. I forgot. I can't do it.
My favorite memory of Ian would be the terrible line delivery in this one basement scene. There's a lot of scenes he had where it's just hilarious to watch him trying to act, but because none of us are good, but sometimes he had some great gems. And there was one time in the basement where you just gotta see it to believe it.
You motherfucker! I'm gonna kill all you sick bastards.
He's just leave this alone.
Hey, look at me, April. We're gonna get through this. You and me, we can get through anything. Just fight back the pain, babe. Fight it back. Lay off, you cretin.
Funny note, if you notice at the beginning he has long hair, and then after he's kidnapped he has short hair. So he cut his hair. I mean, it was annoying, but it's one of those things you look back on and it was hilarious. So a lot of the funny stuff I look back on involved him.
Are you okay? I slipped, and then I opened my eyes, and then they were on fire. Okay, we're good.
Get on set.
Where did you want me to say that? Why would they bother doing anything?
Do you think this
The
has to reset?
Go! It's too late.
The best memory I have from Ian during filming actually has nothing to do with the movie itself, but more of a behind the scenes thing. The first time we went to the party scene house, it was actually James Bull's house. Ian got there and he's like, this place looks really familiar. I don't know if I've been here before. Then we get into the kitchen and he notices a mark on the oven, and he realizes that he made that mark when he was there years ago filming a music video for another band. He I guess you can actually see in the movie where he slaps a pot or something across a table and it makes the mark, and he's I just thought it was a really funny coincidence that out of all the places we could have filmed, it was the house he'd already been at.
And I'm glad we all got to do this before he passed on, because I mean we all got to get know him better and talk to him. I mean we all talked to him in high school, but after high school, you don't really talk to people, so it's cool bringing him in. He's a cool guy, so I mean, I'm glad that we got to work with him.
I didn't know Ian that well during high school, but I got to know him a lot better during filming. He was always, when he was there, he was always giving it his best work, and he was always completely involved in the filming. He was never divided attention. And I think that shows that even though this was just a silly movie, he was willing to help us out as much as he could. He was a really nice guy. He was always cracking jokes, and he made everyone feel more comfortable when he was around, and I'm definitely going to miss that.
So that's pretty much all we have to say about this. I hope that you guys can at least go see some of this movie to see him in it. Not that you should see the rest of it. It's a terrible film. But the part with him, it would be nice just to see him again. Like I remember when I found out about Ian, I went back to the movie that we made and just like watched some of the scenes that he was in, just because it's a really surreal feeling. And he's definitely going to be missed by everyone at Mr. Mayhem Movies and so many friends and family. He was a good guy.
She sparks the flame in my veins, ties her tongue to my neck. I can't try. She's in her shade.